Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the live chat for the week of May 23rd, 2023. We're having a day early just because, going to be traveling a little bit. So wanted to get it in this week because we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of interesting things going on in the world of meteorology that we're going to touch on. Of course, we have the development in the tropics, kind of. We have El Nino developing. We have maybe an unsettled weekend, maybe not. Memorial Day weekend is basically a question I get every day since, about 2 weeks. For the past 2 weeks now, every day someone's sending me emails saying, what's Memorial Day weekend going to be like? So we're going to talk about that tonight. Now we have a little bit more details. And we're going to talk about climate change. And that's always an interesting topic, isn't it? As you know, I do not like to mix politics and science because I love science and I hate politics. So when they get mixed, it's kind of like a love-hate relationship. Yeah, it's a mess, exactly. And to me, science is the search of truth. And so there's a lot of stuff going on that I wanted to touch on that sometimes you can put out something that is true, but is phrased wrong. So I wanted to explain this and walk you through it, so that way you understand what exactly some people are talking about, okay? So, and by the way, I got the Mets game on too because they're actually winning. I don't know how, but I'll take it, okay? They're doing good, and Beatty, once again, is doing a great job hitting the ball. There we go. Okay, so why am I talking about climate change tonight? And we're going to talk about a lot of stuff tonight, so just hold on, okay? But this is important to me, all right? Because I don't like when politics gets involved in my passion and love. So this little diagram here has been floating around from Carbon Brief, and several professors and doctors of climate have been circulating this. Now, is this nonsense or not? The answer is that yes and no. Okay? Why do I say yes and no? Is it supported by data? Yes. If you get a certain amount of CO2 and methane forcing, and you get other factors at the same time evolving, then what you see in this map could happen. Now, I say could, let me break down some of this stuff, okay? If you continue to get massive warming in northern Canada, yeah, your permafrost is going to start to give way. This isn't something that's outlandish or something from the Sci-Fi Channel. It literally has happened before. It will happen again. And it is something that is happening at a faster pace. So that's certainly something that is realistic. The Atlantic Meridional, I can never pronounce that correctly, overturned circulation. Basically, the Atlantic circulation, the Gulf Stream, that collapsing. There has been a lot of research on that. There's a lot of debate. It is not something that is locked in. It is something that is hotly debated because we haven't seen an actual slowdown in the observations of the Gulf Stream. But in theory, if we melt all the ice in Greenland, that itself won't raise the water levels. But what it does is that you add a lot of fresh water, and that disrupts the circulation, right? So there is that factor that in theory, if you melt all the water and you introduce that much fresh water into that circulation, you would in theory break that circulation. A feature that I strongly push back on is what they talk about in the Western Antarctica ice sheet, okay? Especially in West Antarctica. That's called calving. That's a natural process. There is no indication that the actual glaciers themselves that are on the continent that are significantly melting. there are indications on the Antarctic Sea where we get movements of warmer water and we get some of that circulation that's going on in the Pacific and the Atlantic that causes calving. That's a natural process. Okay. Now, if you get a massive calving event combined with some warmer temperatures, you could produce a rather large iceberg, but that wouldn't raise the sea surface temperature. That wouldn't raise the sea levels because it's already on the water. So it's like melting an ice cube in your soda. When the ice melts, it doesn't overflow your soda cup. It just stabilizes itself because the buoyancy is the same. Okay? So that is questionable. Okay? I'm trying to be kind here. Okay? So I'm always pushing back against that. All this other stuff that's shaded in red, in theory, can it happen? Yes, in theory. Let me show you the theory. This is from the IPCC. I always go by research data that I can use and study. And this is really important. This is directly from the UN, a lot of the research. And here's my problem. A lot of the doomsday stuff that's going on out there over the past 2-3 weeks from a lot of climate change scientists stems from this feature right here, SSP5-85. What that essentially is if we decide to say, forget solar, forget wind, no nuclear, and we're going to just do all coal. That's 8.5. This is the worst case scenario. This is a scenario where we basically act like we're in 1975. And we have lead gasoline for cars, and there are no electric cars, nothing. Like everything falls back 50 years in terms of technology. There is literally no indication we're heading down that way. None. Okay? So, using this as a baseline for your research is irresponsible. I'm just going to say it. It's irresponsible. It's like saying, well, I'm going to base all my forecasts on the most epic snowstorm we ever have. That is going to be my baseline. So we're going to start at 30 inches and then we'll adjust 5 or 4 inches depending on what the model guidance says. That's essentially what we're doing in this scenario, which is why it's poor. Where are we really? We're more like around here, kind of in the middle of the pack. This right here is if Star Trek showed up and the Vulcans gave us amazing technology and we started to cool the planet, okay? It's not realistic right now. It would create, what you would need is a major technological change, like fusion. Like fusion actually taking hold completely. We completely change our entire electrical output, and you're able to create a lot of our material that we need every day, from medical to just getting around, in a way that basically you don't have to mine anymore. So Star Trek: The Next Generation, that's what that is. Okay? This is more reasonable because this would say, okay, we gradually improve our technology. We have AI, we start using more nuclear, we start using more wind, we still have some oil because guess what? We still need plastics. But we gradually get better. And that keeps us around 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius. Something that, yes, it's warmer, but it's not catastrophic. Okay? And also, finally, my last point on climate change, using a baseline of pre-industrial is unrealistic. Because I don't know about you, but I'm not going back to living in a hut, okay? And I'm sure as heck not going to be living in a stone castle. And although I don't order it a lot, I do like my Wendy's, and I do like my air conditioning. And I bet you do too. So the idea of us going back to a pre-industrial standard and therefore pre-industrial temperatures is not only unrealistic, it's just silly. It really is silly. You know, even people in developing countries are going to have better technology than pre-industrial. So it's a silly, silly idea. And by the way, you need to mine all these minerals that you need to build your electric car, your solar panels and whatnot. So going to carbon zero literally can't happen unless you find a way to mine everything without using mining technology. So good luck with that. So I wanted to touch on that. And my final thing I'm going to say is this. Do not be the person that puts yourself in an echo chamber. This goes for both of the individuals who say anyone who doesn't agree with me is a climate denier, and anyone who disagrees with me is a communist and a climate hoax. Okay? You have to use a little bit of common sense. Okay? Basic physics. If you're introducing more of something into the atmosphere, you're going to get a result. It doesn't mean that we have to put on the Sci-Fi Channel and the world's going to end and everything's going to turn to Venus. But it also means that you can't say you don't have an impact. You have to have a little bit of common sense here. Stay away from anyone that's going to make hysterical, ridiculous comments. For example, that it's a new world order and they're all trying to take over the world. Or it's a new world order and they're all trying to destroy the world. Those two groups are the loudest and the stupidest. Move away from them. And just use common sense. Improving technology, living better, living cleaner, and I think we'll be okay. If we just dive into our technology, continue to improve it, and try to strive to be a little bit cleaner every year. So that's where we are in climate. I wanted to bring that up. I also got a couple of books on the way, so definitely check that out. Now let's talk about El Nino. I love El Nino. Every time someone brings up El Nino and they start to get really scared about El Nino and they do all that stuff, I just put up Chris Farley. Because, that's always fun, to always watch that. I am El Nino. It stands for the Nino. I mean, that's just classic. And it's a perfect example of a lot of the hysteria going on here. Much like La Nina, El Nino will create some rather interesting weather patterns and some severe weather patterns around the world. Yes, California is going to see quite a bit of rain. Yes, the Southeast is going to see more severe thunderstorms. That's El Nino. That's literally the pattern. So it's not unusual. It's just what El Nino is. Okay. Now we're starting to see a lot of convection firing around the dateline, and we're seeing an increase in tropical systems in the Western Pacific, some pretty strong ones. The impact of these typhoons is very important because if they start to head up towards, let's say, Japan and then heading up towards the Aleutian Islands, when it does that, it has the potential of enhancing the polar jet stream and making for some interesting weather for us about 7 to 10 days later. So once a typhoon gets to about here, and we know it's heading towards this way, take about 7 to 10 day lag, and most likely we'll have some sort of storm somewhere on the East Coast. Not necessarily for the northern Mid-Atlantic, but certainly over the eastern United States at some point. So that's certainly something that we're going to be keeping an eye on. What I find very interesting when I think about the influence of El Nino on the upcoming weather pattern for not only the rest of summer but the fall and winter is that I am seeing more and more of a focus of convection right around the dateline. Very, very interesting. Typically, when I see an El Nino that focuses convection here constantly, that usually supports a warmer pattern for us over the eastern United States with a trough axis right around here. And you kind of get this broad ridge, and then you can kind of get warm air surging in. And that continues on through the fall and to the winter. But when you see more and more convection here, well, that puts your trough axis back towards the Tennessee River Valley. And when we have that happening, well, then we get some interesting weather. And we get more of an influence from the polar jet stream, more amplified polar jet stream, more polar air in the summer, the fall, and yes, the winter. So it's certainly something that we're going to be keeping an eye on and watching it very carefully. As far as the temperatures are concerned, we're seeing a slight reduction here in the El Nino Nino 3.4 level over the past couple of days. This is normal. When you have El Nino develop, it's never just a steady rise. It's always kind of like an ebb and flow. So we're definitely moving in that right direction. And as I warned you guys, Nino 1 plus 2 is being its volatile self, spiking and now starting to crash. This is normal that you typically see, whether it's El Nino, La Nina. It's always very volatile, so I never really utilize that. 3.4 is what I usually watch out for, and I combine this with the SOI data, and boy, is the SOI data tanking. Here's the daily values. I haven't seen the negative contributions this negative in quite some time. I think the last time was 2019, certainly 2018, where I've seen it sustained. So certainly we are moving in that direction where both the monthly and the seasonal values are all heading towards an El Nino state. It's fundamentally changing the weather pattern. It's fundamentally changing the AAM, and it's leading to more troughs over the eastern United States. And when we see this negative daily contribution, that usually means a stronger potential for surface low pressure systems along the East Coast. And that takes us to this weekend. Now, as you know, I've been keeping an eye on the tropics, and let's just say there's been some media coverage suggesting that there would be some sort of interaction with a tropical system. And the reason why is because there was this weak disturbance here. Now, look, the NHC does what the NHC does. They gave a 10% potential to a tropical wave under an upper level low. I don't know why. Even in its own discussion, it was saying that there was strong shear, cold air aloft, pretty much everything that would negate the potential development of any type of warm core low pressure system. But they put it out there, and then some people took that and said, well, this can get entrained into the upper level low and produce a tropical system. Not the best idea. So I want to make this very clear. Right now, there is no indication of any type of warm core system associated with this upper level low. Could we see a warm core low develop, though? Well, the GFS is trying to hint at something here around the Gulf Stream. And I'm going to show you a diagram I drew up. I'm actually getting better at my maps. I'll show you that in a moment. But basically, this is the setup for this weekend. Let's see if this loads. Here we are, the water vapor. Okay, so we have this trough coming in with a cold front that's going to be moving through tomorrow through Thursday. A few scattered clouds. You might see a pesky isolated shower around the Hudson River Valley. But the reason why this is important is that it sets up an upper level low here by the time we get to Friday. Meanwhile, all this starts to set up an upper level low over the southeast, right around the Bahamas, right around this area here. The combination of these two are going to fight each other. And like I said, basic physics. You have low heights in one place, low heights in another place. You have to have a balance between these two. And so you end up with above normal heights here. And that's where things get interesting for our weekend. When we take a look at the model data, and we're going to lean more on the European as the WPC is kind of leaning more towards that scenario here. You see the setup here. And this is certainly good news, this type of setup, if you have plans for Memorial Day weekend around the region. And it's a pretty well-supported idea on all the guidance. Upper level low to our south, upper level low to the north. We're trapped in between. And that's also showing up here in the operational guidance. This is 500 millibar PVA. Let me show you the winds though. Hopefully this comes up. There it is. And I want to show you 850 millibars. There we are. Okay, so through the weekend, from 850 millibars down to the surface, it produces an onshore flow. from two different sources. One from the Canadian Maritimes, the other from the tropics. Moisture, cool air, dry air aloft, moisture air at the surface. So what is this all set up? Well, let's have some fun with some maps. Let's see here. So I drew this, and I'm very proud of this because I've gotten a lot better in drawing the United States. So I've been practicing. I think this looks a lot better.
Florida.
Well, Florida, I'm trying. It's a little skewed. It should be more that way.
It's a little wrong looking, but okay.
It's getting better. I got more work to do, but still. Okay, so here's our upper level low down here. Here's the upper level low here, and here is our high pressure system. Now, this upper level low is down to the surface. There is some indication on the GFS that it could produce a warm core low. Why is that the case? Well, under this upper level low, you have the Gulf Stream. And the theory is this. You have the Gulf Stream hanging around. You have plenty of convection. You have cold air aloft. It could produce a very weak warm core low under the upper level low. It's more of a subtropical storm than anything else. If that was to happen, then what you get is a lot of convection, a lot of moisture lingering right around North Carolina, and we get nothing. Because remember what I said about a warm core structure from 850 millibars down to the surface? It tightens up the precipitation field. It typically doesn't expand it out as it's developing. So that's something we're going to have to keep an eye on, but I have some doubts on it. Okay, but the GFS is showing it, so I figure I'd bring it up. The reason why I have some doubts on it is that in this scenario, when I was taking a look at the upper level winds, there's a lot of shear. So this most likely is not going to be an issue. But we'll watch it. What is an issue is that with this upper level low hanging around the surface low right around the same general area, and this upper level low here, it sets up high pressure at all levels over New England. And what that does is set up cool air coming in from the Canadian Maritimes and warm moist air coming in from the tropics. And they basically interact right over us. So what that essentially does is produce a lot of mixed sun and clouds. The further north you are, the better you'll be. So if you're in the Poconos, the Catskills, the Hudson River Valley, much of central and northern Connecticut, it's going to be a beautiful weekend. Sunshine everywhere, temperatures in the 60s, 70s, and even a few 80s. It's going to be beautiful. But as you head towards the coast, and especially as you head down towards central and southern New Jersey, you're going to deal with more cloud cover. Not much in the way of precipitation, though, because of this ridge causing subsidence. So as a result, what you end up with is a lot of sun and clouds and maybe an isolated shower here and there. Most of your rainfall remains down towards the Carolinas and towards the southeast. So that's the way that the weather pattern is taking shape. I feel almost like a professor or something with this thing. I actually enjoy using it quite a bit. I just have to get better drawing.
I'll try to give you some lessons.
All right. Well, I mean, my wife is an artist, so she would know. I am colorblind, and I have really bad drawing, but I can make a mean Godzilla, so that's good. Ever since I was a little kid, I was always able to draw Godzilla.
Maybe we can get you a stencil.
Maybe. Hey, maybe that'll work. So the overall theme here with this pattern for the Memorial Day weekend is that with the onshore flow, watch out for some strong riptides and some minor coastal flooding, especially with a persistent easterly wind. I wouldn't really worry about rain all that much. Yes, there's a passing shower that's a threat through the weekend, especially on Sunday and on Memorial Day. But other than that, I really wouldn't worry about anything else too much. And if you're going to have a barbecue, rock on. Should be fine out there. So with that, I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover. So now it is that time. As I noticed the Mets are losing 4-0. They'll rebound. I'm going to take the questions first from the live chat area. And then I will check out YouTube and see how that is doing, as I normally do. And let's see here. We got some questions down there. Okay, so we start off first with the premium areas. Let's see here. Fog was so thick in Atlantic City on Saturday that there were times that we couldn't see the street from our room on the 34th floor of the Borgata. Yeah, I would not be surprised if we see that again this upcoming weekend, and also really a theme all the way throughout much of the summer. I think the northeasterly and easterly wind pattern is going to be a continued theme throughout much of the summer. Any theories which discount geothermal activity are garbage, in my opinion. Well, you have to include volcanic activity, obviously, especially with methane release, especially like off the East Coast. There's quite a few vents that issue a lot of methane. So let's think about this here. So you have the methane release, you have the natural CO2 release, you have sulfur release. Absolutely. Okay, and that certainly will help to warm up the planet and cool down because of some sulfates and whatnot. But then you also introduce a lot of additional CO2 and methane, not only from driving and just living your life, but also mining everything that you use, transporting everything you use. And oh, by the way, my vegan friends, you guys aren't as green as you think, because guess what? You don't grow plants in the middle of winter when you go and get your soy milk. Okay, that all has to be transported as well. So there we go. So basically, the world, right? The world we live in is what it is, right? So yes, there is that. There's natural factors, then there's the human factors. To realize the human factors should not discount the natural factors. But just because there's natural factors does not discount our influences that we do ourselves with natural technology. As I said, simple physics. If you're introducing more of something into the carbon cycle, the methane cycle, and other cycles, there must be a reaction to that. That's not politics, that's not anything, that's just simple physics, simple mathematics, simple chemistry. It is what it is. So, all right, so let's see here. These experts have been making kinds of predictions for over 30 years. Ah, yes, and have been constantly wrong. Not consistently wrong, okay, but note that they put this out right after the Supreme Court allows states to handle the. Well, again, all right, so, Card, I'm going to put it to you this way. I don't think the UN cares about our Supreme Court, because you got Europe, you got Asia, you got all that stuff. So I'm going to put that aside. I agree with you that there have been some individuals, and this is why I mentioned about the 8.5. There are some individuals who either are trying out for the Sci-Fi Channel or are doomsday individuals. Okay? You can understand the science without going to the worst case scenario possible. And there are some who make arguments saying that they should go to that worst case scenario. But I think all that does is create a lot of pushback, especially when it doesn't happen. For example, when I grew up in the late 90s, everyone was telling me New York City was going to be underwater. And I was like, it doesn't really track. It doesn't make sense to me. I got in trouble for that in college. When I said that, I pushed back on it. I said, look at the rate that the oceans are rising in millimeters, and then look at what your statement is by 2025 or 2020, 2015, 2010. It doesn't make sense. That's why I always say stay away from extremes. Let's see. Greenland has actually built up ice. Not exactly. It built up on snowfall in the central part of Greenland, but not the coastal regions. So the anomalies are slightly negative, which is why I push back on the idea that the Gulf Stream's going to collapse, because we're not seeing the reduction in glaciers in Greenland, but they are reducing. They are falling down. But it's not to the rate that some would say it is. At the same time, if you're going to have a warmer planet, you're also going to have more snowfall in Greenland, which also helps build up the interior parts of the glaciers. But there's always that tipping point that you always have to watch out for. Reduction of electrical generation from fossil fuels has taken place had made large parts of the country at risk for blackouts. This is why I always say we should have invested in the infrastructure a long time ago. We should have gone nuclear. Even with fusion, you still need petroleum. Well, I agree with that. Card, there is no... Okay, I'll put it to you this way, Card. Sometimes problems are real, and it's not about a boogeyman. I'll put it to you like that. Okay? There is nothing wrong with trying to improve technology that gives you a cleaner planet, a more sustainable planet. But you can do that without all the other stuff. Rob Allen, should I say. Haven't been on, just wanted to congratulate on a new house. Thank you. Best of luck to you and Susan. Thank you. Loving the Meduki El Nino. Yeah, that should be interesting. I think it's going to be basin wide, but we'll see how it works out. Meanwhile, offshore wind farms seem to be killing whales. Yeah, I always... let me put it to you this way. The reason why I'm so much into nuclear is that I think it can control it better. But again, you have to, in order to create new technology and improve technology, you cannot sit back and just keep on using it. Saying that all we should do is just focus on oil and gas is kind of like saying all we should do is focus on whale blubber to have lights. We need to move forward. The official policy of the current administration, don't care. The 250 millibar pattern in the Pacific is really amplified. Seems to be the convection in the Pacific is having a great impact. It definitely is. Let's see here. Notice where we had all that convection and look how it's influencing this upper level low. The upper level low stretches out our trough and enhances the front end of the trough with a slight positive tilt. The buildup of mass then enhances our ridge and amplifies our entire polar jet stream. So you can literally see, here's the convection, here's your divergence and diffluence, there's the enhancement in our jet streak. It stretches out the trough, enhances the trough, and there you have your stronger polar jet stream. Let's see. I know you've been talking about stiff vertical winds in the tropical Atlantic, most likely keeping things quiet. Are you buying homegrown systems being caught by a Tennessee Valley upper level low, causing havoc towards later part of summer? It's certainly a possibility. I can't discount it. I talked about it in the tropical forecast. So definitely check that out in the premium dashboard. It is the first tropical discussion of the season. It is a concern. It's something I'm definitely keeping an eye on. We'll see how it works out. But it is something I'm keeping a close eye on. You know, I wouldn't be so much worried about a actual tropical system on its own. And I'm not trying to make that statement to scare anyone. But I'd certainly watch out for the potential of more tropical moisture interacting with cold fronts that are approaching. So that's certainly something to keep an eye on. 250 millibar tropical jet has a nice split. Let's see here. Let's move that here. Yeah, I mean, this is a nice amplified pattern. Typical El Nino. I mean, this is textbook right here. So basically, Darien Parkway traffic to make a run down to AC should not have any added precipitation problems to trip. Any chance of fog? Definitely fog, definitely low clouds. Don't be surprised if there's a little bit of drizzle on the coast in the morning hours. I can't rule out a shower, but it won't be a washout. You guys are funny tonight. Easy on Wendy's. I like Wendy's. What's wrong with Wendy's? Every so often. Let's check out, see what's going on YouTube. Hope you choose salads at Wendy's. Dude, I'm a carnivore. There is no way I'm going with just salads. Let's see here. Will the cold front that comes through Wednesday night produce enough rain to finally clear out this haze? No, not at all. We'll be lucky to get 1/100th of an inch of rainfall out of this. Overall, what I'm expecting is most of the sky cloud cover. The only thing that's really going to drive out this haze is a shift in our winds more out of the Atlantic. But even that's going to be limited. It will eventually die down once they take care of the forest fires in northwestern Canada. But unfortunately, we're going to be dealing with this haze for quite a few weeks. Could it be these gloom and doom predictions are more based for financial reasons than truth? I want to be careful how I answer this. Oh, Mets had a home run. Yay! We're on the board. Okay. I think, and I've actually went to college with some of these individuals, and I know them offline. We talk about Twitter. We have fun. There are some people that make the case that you use the worst case scenario to get people's attention and to teach them what happens if we do nothing. My pushback is that if you produce scenarios that are unlikely to happen and then they don't happen, then you give people a reason to do nothing, because then they say, you see, they're wrong. You see that problem? If you look at the pure data, again, if we went back to technology from 1975 and we continue that on through, those worst case scenarios will happen because of physics, because of the introduction of CO2 and methane and smog, and it's just bad crap. Okay, bad. Okay. But I don't think we're heading in that direction. So I'd rather give a positive point of view on this. We have work to do, but it's not the end of the world. We have to improve our technology, but we're not going to end up like Venus. We have to work on our electrical grid, regardless of any of this stuff. And please, there's too many brownouts. In New Jersey, we get a gust of wind and we lose power. That's why I got a generator. Give me a break. We need to work on that. Our bridges, don't get me started in New Jersey. Come on. So I think we all can agree that we need to improve our infrastructure, right? I think we all can agree that we need to have technology that isn't dependent on some war in some other country, right? So I lean towards we're improving our technology. We're getting better. We can do better. We don't need to break the bank, destroy the economy, or hurt other people, or create dangerous situations where we have brownouts and whatnot, when we just need to invest in our technology wisely. When we need to conserve wisely. For example, if you live in California, don't need the golf out course as much as you could in conserving water, because you built an entire city in a desert. Common sense, right? So that's what we're talking about here. So great question, by the way, Judy. Absolutely outstanding question. Look, the Cub fans are building one of those large soda beer funnel things. Will winds from the cold front bring more high-level smoke from the wildfires in Canada? I think initially they might, because the way here, let me go to the upper level winds here. So when the cold front blows through, you're going to get these northwesterly winds. Here's the winds right now set up. I'm going to go to 500 millibars here. And you see this direction here? And you can see it here. Let me shift 500 millibars. Okay. See how these winds are like this here? Your fire is here, your smoke is here, and then right into the northern Atlantic. So what you need to do is cut this off. So when I look at the upper level winds at 500 millibars, I don't really see it getting cut off all that much. We might have a chance right around Friday morning into Friday afternoon, because the winds are coming due from north to south. So it's not directly in that smoke plume. So we might be able to clear out from there. And then during the weekend, you're getting winds coming in from the Canadian Maritime, so maybe that would cut out the smoke and kind of clear things out. So we'll have to watch that out. What's the best day for a barbecue for the holiday weekend? I'm going to go for Saturday, and this is why. On Saturday, I have an upper level ridge at all levels of the atmosphere right over us. 850 millibar temperatures are relatively cool. Cloud cover. Let's see here. Let me go back here. On Saturday, cloud cover is pretty much clear for the most part. You do have some high clouds down in southern New Jersey. And also during that time period, surface high pressure is right over you. So I'm going with Saturday as your best day, considering the environment. Let's see here. So those are excellent questions. Let's see here. And let me see, make sure I got all the questions answered. We got them all answered, and it's 8:40 p.m. After this, by the way, I'm going to be taking a nice ice pack to my knee. It's a little swollen. I don't know what I did. I don't like being over 40 because now I don't know how I get hurt. That's the problem now, is that I get hurt and I don't know why. I felt better when I would get hurt and I knew why. Like, for example, playing football or playing baseball or I moved the wrong way. Now it seems that if I sleep wrong, something gets hurt. And that's even with me stretching and moving around. So this stuff has got to end. I hope that my knee it feels a little better tomorrow. I'm going to ice it up, get a nice massage, and we'll see how that goes. So hopefully that improves. Let's see if we got any more questions here. Is Saturday also the day that we'll have the least worst coastal fog? Actually, Saturday morning might provide the best potential for coastal fog because the winds are going to be light and variable with plenty of low-level moisture around the Jersey Shore. So that might be the potential for some low-level fog. But the good news is that at the same time, with subsidence in place, that the fog will burn off a lot quicker with the sun rising and solar mixing. So it might be locally dense on Saturday morning, let's say like from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m., but then after 8 a.m., that fog rapidly burns off because of the solar mixing involved. The worst day of the weekend, if you want to call it, is really on Memorial Day, where you get a little bit more of an easterly fetch, and there's a slight increase in the precipitable water values. Let me pull that up. PWAP values, right? I know they're right here somewhere. Here we are. So let me pull that up real fast. And actually, let me go to 12Z data. Okay, so on Memorial Day, you get a little bit more of an increase of moisture coming in from the Canadian Maritimes. And so that leads into a little bit more moisture around the region and a little bit better potential for a few isolated showers. Will Cali be getting more precipitation in the summer like the past winter? Excellent question, Jimbo. All right, so the past winter, which was a very strange La Nina. And I say that because it acted more like an El Nino around California. So it produced a lot of strong short waves coming in from the South Pacific into portions of Southern California and produced a lot of snow in the mountains. In this case, I think we're going to get a much stronger fetch than what we saw even then. Let's just say that last winter's little event was more like a preview for what we could expect once El Nino gets established by midsummer, so let's say July, and just continuing on through the fall and winter. A lot more rainfall, But it's a warmer pattern because you're getting a direct tropical fetch in. So you're not going to get a lot of the Arctic air coming in like what you had in the past winter that produced a lot of snowfall for the Sierra Nevada. But instead, what you're going to get is a nice jet stream coming in from the tropical Pacific. And I think we're going to see a high threat for mudslides, flash flooding. The fire season might not be as bad as one would think because of the higher potential for rainfall, but your mudslides are going to increase, your heavy rainfall is going to increase, and hopefully if someone's smart, they'll actually save some of that rainfall because then we will eventually go into a drought pattern. I just want a nice hot summer in Jersey. Not this year, typically not El Ninos. El Ninos typically do not support sustained hot summers, more humidity, but not so much hot temperatures because you got more troughs, more cold fronts moving through. What you want to look for a hot and humid summer is a strong ridge around Bermuda to the Bahamas, which sets up a strong southwesterly flow, and that's where we get our hot and humid summers from. Right now, I don't see that pattern on the way. I can't say it won't happen at all throughout the summer, but it'll certainly be less frequent than what you would normally expect. All right, so it's a little bit past 8:45. I'm gonna go ice my knee. Actually, it's been a great chat. Outstanding questions. I'm gonna wait for another minute or two to see if there's any more questions that are gonna come in, and then I'm gonna call it a night and get my knee checked out because it hurts a little bit. But I wanted to thank everyone for joining in. Outstanding, excellent questions. I never want a sustained hot summer. Yeah, I'm not much of a hot summer person myself. I like.
I'm combustible, no.
Yeah, my wife is combustible when it comes to a lot of sun, so I don't want that. So I like summers where I get like a lot of showers and thunderstorms and whatnot, or high pressure from the Gulf of Maine producing tranquil, quiet conditions. Let's see here. Will the summer be wetter than normal? That is a tough one. If we see a lot of scenarios where we have these upper level lows, here, let me pull up 500 millibar pattern. Let me pull this up. Okay, so if we see this theme a lot, you get this upper level low here and this trough here, then we're going to see a lot of below normal precipitation regimes because all your storms are marching over, let's say, from the southern plains to the southeast, and Virginia and North Carolina gets plenty of rainfall, but we miss out. But if we shift to something more like this, then you end up with a higher potential for low pressure systems impacting the region, and a higher potential for rainfall. So we're going to keep an eye on it. Right now, I'm thinking more like near normal. We're going to have our stretches of very dry weather and wet weather, and we're going to be moving back and forth, but we will remain active. It's just a matter of where do these low pressure system tracks set up as we move on through the summer. So that's it for tonight. Outstanding questions. Once again, I want to thank everyone for joining in. I really appreciate it, and I will see you next week on Wednesday at 8 p.m. In the meantime, stay safe out there.